Okay, so we have a great panel here for you, and it's, in a sense, the opposite of the panel that we did at 9:30. You see, social selling isn't all gumdrops and ice cream, or digital transformation isn't either. There are pitfalls, challenges, and in fact, frankly, there can be shitstorms. And we need to highlight those so we can avoid it in the future. So I have an incredible panel for us. The first panel, the leader of the panel is Koka Sexton. If Jill Rowley was the queen of social selling, Koka Sexton would be the king. Koka leads social media at LinkedIn, and his fun fact is before he got into sales, he was in law enforcement, but we have an ex-soldier in the room. So, next we have Corey Summers. Corey Summers is the Director of Sales Enablement at Couchbase, and he's fantastic and loves cruises. Loves cruises so much, he's done the Baltics, he's done the Caribbean, I'm certain. Have you done up to Alaska? He's done them all, loves the cruise. Next we have Paul GOTTSEGEN. Paul GOTTSEGEN is the CMO of Mindtree, global organization out of India. Interesting fact, and I actually can't believe this, I had to ask it twice. He is related to Dustin Hoffman and Louis Armstrong. Yeah, exactly. You really? Next is Andrew Taylor. Andrew Taylor runs enablement at Jive software here in the Valley. And his fun fact is it says a dedicated coffee drinker. I would consider that an addict of coffee. And last, we have HARRIET FRYMAN. And she is Chief People Officer, VP of Growth at IBM Analytics. And her fun fact is that she used predictive analytics in school to guess what the test questions were going to be. Then she sold them to the fellow students. And as all her answers were correct, she started charging more and more per answer. So, that's crazy. Anyways, it's going to be a great panel. I'll give this to Corey.
Thank you, Jamie. Rock and roll.
Thank you very much, Jamie. And let me first say thank you to all of you who, again, took time out of your day to learn from all of us. I can't stress enough that as I've met people throughout this morning, that I'm also learning from all of you. So it's great that sales and marketing leaders are all getting together in one place. And major appreciation to Jamie and Sales for Life for having me up here and putting this whole event together. So thank you very much. So to my panel, as Jamie alluded, when we are building social selling programs, when we're building a digital transformation within our companies, there's a lot of great stuff that comes out of it. And that's the stuff that we usually want to promote internally and externally, like how great things are going. But there are a lot of bad things that happen in the process. There's a lot of missteps. There's a lot of mistakes that are made. And that's really what this panel is supposed to highlight for all of you, so that we can start helping you look for these mistakes that are going to come up or help you avoid the missteps that these other companies have faced. So one of the first questions, within the space of social selling is, when you're building the program at your company, what was the biggest resistance you felt, and how did you overcome it? And I'll start with you, Corey.
Thanks, Koka. We surprisingly didn't have a ton of organized resistance to the program. I mean, Couchbase is a smaller company, private company, about 300 people, Salesforce 50, 60 strong, and people were just so excited at the prospect of using it. We thought that the resistance would come with some of the older reps, not as in tune with social, and we thought the millennial guys would take to it quicker. Actually, the two biggest deals that have been done directly from social were done by two of the longest tenured reps in the company. And that was a bit of a surprise for us.
I wonder if that's kind of an outlier, because let me ask. Why don't you tell us what happened on your side?
Actually, same as Corey. We had a great. We've had so many issues in our digital transformation, which has now gone quite well at Mindtree. But social selling was maybe the least controversial thing we had done. It was deployed. It was viewed as one of the best sales training events we ever did. The Sales for Life team, Jamie, Amar, they hit it out of the park. when I think back about why it was so well received, one thing that I liked is within 90 seconds of the first training session to the field, they were giving details, really nitty-gritty details of how to search on LinkedIn or whatever. It wasn't a lot of overview and slideware, a lot of setup of why we're doing it. They kind of backed into it after they gave great little choice examples of how they can socially sell. So we'll get later on in the panel, we'll get into the trials and tribulations of digital transformation, but social selling worked.
Either any of the last two panelists have any issue with executive buy-in or anything along those lines?
So from IBM, we have pretty large sales force, and I would say that the biggest challenge was shifting the mindset that all the leads and the interest should come from marketing to sales, and that sales really didn't have to have their own brand presence in the marketplace. So the program we did was we didn't start out with the large enterprise sellers. We started with inside sales, telemarketing, building their own social page of their personality, their interests, their skill sets, and then use that data to prove to the broader sales force that social selling was the way to go and the response that you could get just from starting to build your own brand out there.
How about you, Andrew?
Yeah, so I agree with Corey at the beginning. There was no difficulty in people's interest in learning about it from the beginning. So we had everybody who was like, this is what we've got to do, let's get the program, let's get everybody trained. Actually, the biggest challenge is after that, is keeping it going. Is the repetitive nature of keeping the education going and the discipline of making them do it every day. That is the biggest challenge. So getting started, no problem whatsoever. Maintaining that and getting that rhythm and discipline going is the biggest challenge. And that's still ongoing. We're still learning how to deal with that.
Yeah, I'll just add one thing to that. That you're absolutely right. The continuity, the longevity. One of the top reps who closed that big deal, he will go back to social selling techniques when he's in a rut, when he's got a lack of pipeline, when he's in a tough spot. He told me last week, I talked to him, he switches on that social selling mindset and he drives back into the program, into the techniques, and that's how he fills his pipeline. But it's not something that he's always doing, and that's the challenge, right? How do we get it to be something that's continual?
And again, that's like those tenured reps, especially the ones that are successful. There's a little bit of resistance from them, right? Because they're being successful. And so you really need to, as a lesson learned, I think, is incorporate them at the very beginning, right? Those sort of peer, those leaders that are making success, really treat them separately to start with as a kind of beachhead for everybody else and put them as an example. Because they do have a little bit of resistance. And it's difficult because if they're successful, they have influence, if you see what I mean, right? They can push back. They will push back.
No. Can I just build on that? Because that's true. That's what we did. And part of the program was to have those beachhead guys actually kind of co-lead a session, which made a big difference. So it wasn't just that they were doing it. There was some prep ahead of a session, and everybody learned from them, not just from the social selling training people, which really sent a great signal to the team.
And did you have a separate repository for this? Because I think that was one of the great key learnings from the first panel that we had. I believe it was Courtney who was talking to this, that there was a specific place that all of these great stories would get collected so that when the training would happen, you'd be able to dip back into this. Do any of your companies have anything along those lines as well?
So I would say we don't have that right now. I think it's something we're looking to do. I think it's really important that you capture those. But it's sometimes difficult, right? Because tracing it back and saying it actually started on social or where I influenced it on social is a little bit difficult. But we do have some where a connection was made or like somebody said what was it, the one with the McDonald's, right? Didn't realize they were connected earlier on. We do have some of those, right? Would they have actually come up in the past without social? Probably not. So we need to find more of those. And in fact, I'm interested in other industry peers and companies who have success, because I want to promote those as well to show that this is the way forward, right? This is what we've got to be doing.
Yeah, I think with a smaller sales force, word gets around much faster. with a larger sales force, you might need that portal or that place where you're advertising the success of the program. But we've actually, and we'll touch on this later when we talk about tracking, because that's the biggest pitfall. We've had 3 very high-profile wins that were directly resulting from these techniques, and there was no ifs, ands, or buts about it. We know that it resulted from the training, and it was the word of mouth from those 3 wins that keeps people engaged, but still not enough. That's a challenge.
And when you're going through this process initially and building out your program, technology obviously plays a part in this. So how long did you spend in your organizations actually evaluating these technologies? And what advice can you give to companies that are just starting down this path on what they should be looking for?
So one thing we did, so when we looked at the digital transformation, first off, we looked across functional boundaries. So it's not sales, and then you go to marketing and find the best marketing tools, then you go to support and you find the best support tools. What we did is we said, in 30 days, we're going to pick a set of tools. Likely it won't be the tools that we'll have in 90 days, but let's pick a set of tools. Let's pick it as the team. So sales had to say on what marketing tools were, marketing had to say on what sales tools were. And then we got going just for one product in our portfolio. And we learned a tremendous amount, first off, about the client's own digital journey through those tools, but the fact that you shouldn't let the tools dictate what functions you want. By just picking probably not the best tools, we found out we had process gaps. So just getting going versus trying to find and do an evaluation of all of the tools possible is probably not the best way to go. We chose go fast, learn, and then try again.
Very similar. It varied, but we needed to go fast because there's a lot of pressure on myself and the team to generate leads. And nobody really cared if we spent a whole lot of time evaluating everything. So, for example, we swapped out our marketing automation platform, which was the foundation for everything. And it was 6 weeks of evaluation, which is very long for me, but we didn't want to screw that one up. For personalization, 2 weeks, real quick. These are all SaaS-based platforms. We go fast. The bad example for me, looking back, is automating sales proposals. And it was between 2, and we took 4 months. We should have done it in 2 weeks. And there's so much pressure to have the tech stack produce results. If you're spending too much time doing lots and lots of evaluation in PowerPoint, it becomes self-defeating. You've got to move fast and just live with the fact that 1 out of 5 times you're going to guess wrong, and then you'll just re-up to a different cloud-based platform to fix that.
So I think when you think of social selling, actually implementing it, there's 3 components. There's the actual training, right? So something like Sales for Life, the skills, the approaches, how to search, how to craft your in-mails, all that kind of stuff. Then there are the social media vehicles themselves, LinkedIn, Twitter, etc. But then there's a 3rd category of technology that I guess you could call social amplification. This is how your folks stay continually connected to their networks. So things like Everything Social, Gaggle Amp, Witty Parrot, something like that. So it is important to have, I think, that automation so that your reps are constantly in touch with their networks without them actually having to press the button, and that's what that automation layer can provide.
So you brought up a good point around, around employee advocacy and like building the amplification piece.
Very important.
So during that process, I know IBM has done this. I believe that I've seen this coming from the other companies. Was there an incentive program with this? I think the earlier panel also talked about giving away iWatches and other things to their employees. Did you find that helped in your process of building out this employee advocacy, or was it a detractor?
Yeah, so let me go at that one. So we have dynamic signal. We use that, and there's a leadership table in that, and you get points when you post and when you submit for posts, etc. So there's a little bit of gamification in that as well as incentive. And so we built a sales leadership table. So you can create all these different tables. So So we actually created a league table just for sales guys to see how they're performing, and they can get that competitive nature going between them as such. But we didn't really do anything else. We had a little competition to kick it off, and when we have like quarterly business reviews or sales kickoffs, we typically would do some kind of gamification competition around that with a prize to kind of reinforce the behavior, etc. So I hesitate because I'm not a big fan of always incentivizing the sales reps to do everything, right? Otherwise, they won't do anything unless you incentivize them. So there's got to be like, it's back to that education again. You need to be doing this. If you're not doing this, then you're not a modern sales rep, right? You're behind already because your competition, who are modern sales reps using social, they're already talking to your customers. Whether it's socially or not, whatever, they're already building that relationship. So you need to get there because this is now part of your job.
I think it comes back to what Corey said, which is if you have somebody who has been successful and created an outcome that's valuable to the company and valuable to their pocket in terms of compensation, they're a great incentive, or competitive spirit, great incentive for other people to say, how did you did that? How did it work? What did you do? So I'm with you that you need some incentive, but really the big incentive is hitting your comp plan. And other examples are a great way to cause momentum to grow in the company.
Yeah, I'm similar, but a little more extreme. We have no artificial incentives for sales and marketing because, kind of like what they're saying, for marketing, if you don't invest and understand all the elements of a tech stack and how to drive leads that way, you're not going to be hireable. You're not going to be effective at whatever company you work for. And I'm shocked when I interview good old marketing hands and they can't tell me anything about any part of technology. From a sales side, we're already incenting the sales team to drive business. And if they're not jumping on leads, well, they better be getting business somewhere else. And so that'll come out in the wash. And the incentives are already put in place for the sales team. Hopefully, we're providing great leads that help them win business. And so it's self-fulfilling, or it's a natural selection, where if our leads are good, they'll hit their numbers, they'll use our leads. If not, we've got to find another way to create leads. Incenting them to use leads that aren't effective and having them close business probably would hurt our cause.
Yeah, I think we have a lot in common on this panel in that at Couchbase, we have an anti-spiff sales culture. I mean, from the top down, the idea of giveaways to incent behavior, it's a non-starter. So I think that puts more pressure on showcasing the wins. And I do a weekly radio show for sales called The Straight Scoop, where I have that captive audience. They're all there in attendance, and I can showcase through an interview model, these successes and actually take people through from the in-mail, actually even before that, from the identifying, doing the search, to the in-mail, to the first contact, to the follow-up, actually tracking that and best practicing it, essentially. And having a venue like that to communicate that's critical.
That's great. And then that brings up another point. Andrew and I were talking about this just before the panel today about the executive sponsorship. So you talked about the top-down, how there's a no-spiff rule. What I've seen, or what I've heard from many customers, is that without some type of executive buy-in, these things are very hard to get off the ground. And Andrew and I spent some time talking about this. You want to expand on what it was like at?
Yeah. No, it's critical. It's critical. If there's one advice I'd say to anybody here who's looking for a social selling program and educating the sales force, get the management buy-in. It's got to trickle down from the top, right? It's got to be reinforced. So back to the incentives and things, it shouldn't be necessary about that. The incentive is your boss is going to be checking you on this, right? Because this is the way we need to do business as we go forward. So executive buy-in, and you need to look after that, because we felt we got it at the beginning, and then it waned a little bit. And I think we keep needing to go back and make sure they're understanding why they need to be doing this and getting that buy-in and keeping it trickled down. Because otherwise, I think social selling tools it's just another tool. And the sales reps then treating it in the wrong way. It's just another tool for me to work with.
And why do you think that was waning? You said it was picking up. Is it because it's hard to track on your side, or what was the obstacle that brought that change?
So my management's not here, right? Anyway.
It's a safe zone. We're in
Is
a
it
safe area.
room? Is it like Las Vegas? Anything we say here will stay here? So I actually personally think that what happened was we went through a phase of training and then we kind of went back again and did some more additional training. And what we had was some of that resistance from those senior tech reps. We've done this. I've done this. I know all about it now. And that kind of then gets back up to management, who then say, well, okay, we don't want you training on this again or doing this anymore if you feel like you've already got it. And so it waned a little bit. And I think we need to keep revisiting that through success stories, through that education, through other companies in the industry who are successfully using social selling as well, so we keep up or ahead of those companies. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. So I'd like to hear from, IBM being a massive corporation, like was executive buy-in?
No. We're just tiny.
It's a small company. How...
Easy to do transformation.
Yeah, I bet. How was the executive sponsorship from your level? Like, how did that buy-in happen?
Well, so I totally agree that you need executive buy-in from the top. What we did was we got told, go away and come back in 90 days with measurable outcome, which was great. And then we decided to start from the bottom up. So we actually picked marketing, sales, product, support, and service. And we didn't pick the managers or the vice presidents. We picked the people, sort of first-line managers. And we said, work as a team on a single outcome, which was kind of new because everybody's very functionally organized. And just let them go, because at IBM, we love to make lots of processes. Like, everything's a process and a frame, and you're going to solve for every single country around the world. But if you actually say to a small team, in 90 days, produce an outcome for one product, they can actually form a process that works that you can then scale. Because quite often the failure is we have to solve it all versus we have to work out how to solve it and then scale. So that's what we did. We said executive buy-in was just, you got 90 days, and then the team just go, because everything else is off their plate.
Corey?
Executive buy-in?
Anything on your side?
Well, I actually joined the company after the decision was made, so I don't have as much.
Very easy for you, though.
Makes it very easy, but no, I mean, the whole process of approving it, implementing it, the first thing I did when I started was a comprehensive sales enablement survey, and the program scored the highest by leaps and bounds in terms of just the feedback from the reps, and so yeah, it's been great.
Just real quick, in my case, I am the executive sponsor, and my boss would just care about how many good leads you're driving into the pipeline, and are you increasing our win rate. And what I do with my team behind the scenes, whether it's social selling or whatever, that's me to sponsor it. But he's just looking for the results from a pipeline and revenue standpoint.
The other piece we did was obviously the data is, I can't remember who spoke about the data, but there's lots and lots of data, and lots of data is misquoted. So we went through the data. I learned early in high school. We went through the data and found one data point that everybody was quoting, which in this case was, we had 864 trials of this product in January. Why didn't we get any sales? Well, okay, that's great data, but did you know that 634 deactivated? So actually, we didn't have that number. And once everybody's focusing on the number versus marketing's not giving me enough leads, or sales not following up on the leads, or the product sucks, or the price was wrong, once you focus on, okay, how can we fix that number? It kind of helps galvanize everybody to the problem at hand and gets them out of their functional biases.
And how critical was marketing in this process for your companies? Most sales executives are very execution focused. They're driving pipeline. Obviously, I believe that marketing should be driving pipeline also. But how important was marketing's role within these transformations from social selling to employee advocacy?
So very, very important. We created an initiative bridging sales enablement and sales ops with marketing called Territory Readiness, which really focuses on what are the things that every rep needs, every new rep or underserved rep in a new territory. What do they need to be successful, hitting the ground running in 60 to 90 days? And that's just not only the content and the messaging, but also the list, who to call. So with this digital transformation, we had to go rethink marketing's role in terms of how, and I think this gets back to Laura's piece a little bit, in that we had to rethink marketing, not just blasting the universe, but being local, being territory focused. So aligning with specific territories that are underserved. Predictive analytics gets involved. We selected a predictive analytics vendor that can help us identify the specific targets, titles, type of companies that are most likely to buy, and then actually deliver those names. The first touch is not necessarily marketing, but deliver that to the reps so that they can engage with social selling. And so when you give them the right titles in the right territories at the right types of companies, then you give them these skills, then marketing is aligned fully, right? But so it's causing some change in how marketing has to think about their role, not just this massive blast of the universe, but very local and territory specific. It's very interesting stuff what's happening.
Well, the issue we had at our company, Mindtree, picture like a smaller version of Accenture. It's a big systems integrator. We're the average. We're 18,000 people. And we transform marketing from a content standpoint. So we talked earlier, people were talking earlier, content's important. It's very important. Our team's been good at that. We up-leveled the contents, and we were able to tell stories and evangelize. But what would happen is we would have all these, whether it be an event or a campaign, something that would produce leads, and then the leads would fritter away. We couldn't figure out how to track them. And we had a marketing automation platform. We still didn't know how to track, didn't know how to nurture, didn't know how to check the ROI of any of our events. So the true transformation over the last year for us was going beyond just like the mistake we made, kind of getting at mistakes and pitfalls. When we first focused on automation, we thought, oh, it's all about personas and lead scoring. And we thought if we just got the personas right and the lead scoring right, marketing automation would automatically work for us. And that it couldn't be further from the truth. So the sync between our marketing and our sales automation, we made a lot of mistakes there and learned from the mistakes, because you've got leads in your marketing automation and you've got accounts and contacts in your sales automation, and they need to be always in sync. And then just to be able to automatically track any marketing event. We were at Adobe World last week. Now all those leads are entered in, and we know where they are in the pipeline, and for the next 2 years we'll track, okay, Adobe Summit 2016, what's the velocity through the sales pipeline? And now we have mechanisms. So we had done the content, our stories were great, everybody in the company said, oh, the marketing's so good, they've really, the value proposition, all of that, and yet we couldn't really get the leverage from the leads we would generate from the different marketing events because the tech stack just was not all synced and connected. And lo and behold, in the last 2 months, we've pretty much solved this. I'm sure we'll learn more over time. So marketing's been the driver for this whole effort within Mindtree.
Andrew or Harriet, how important was marketing in the transformation?
So marketing and sales, if only there was sort of smudge, or whatever the combination of the word marketing and sales would be, because they have to be on the same page, and content is king. So marketing knows how to tell a story, they know how to digitally and automatically nurture somebody along the journey. That can go in the digital experience all the way through the product to service. So we actually have somebody in marketing who is the content lead on the squad in which the product management sits and sales lead sits. Center around the content and the data, and those boundaries of functions go away.
Marketing is extremely important in this whole process. I mean, from the content perspective especially, but I think there's two angles here. There's the content that they create and do socially themselves as a marketing team, which we funnel through our sales development reps, right, to qualify, etc., before they become passed on to a field sales rep or something as a lead. But then, and this is what I learned from the Sales for Life program that we're actually going through right now, is getting that marketing helping sales become leaders and building their persona and insights in their space. So not just necessarily republishing the stuff that marketing puts out there to do the brand or the bigger awareness, but actually getting closer to the sales reps and creating content for them. And it could be very easy by just masking maybe a content with something specific for that sales rep, and let that sales rep then post it to build his profile and presence. So customers come to him, or prospects come to him, and that generates his pipeline, etc. So that's something we're learning from the Sales for Life program. That's something we're looking at trying to implement, maybe in a small way to start with. Maybe sales enablement driving that primarily to see how it works. But I think there's a big opportunity there of getting those two disciplines working together and closing that gap.
And for all of you, as we kind of get to the end of this, like what are the things that your teams need to be doing, and the teams in the audience need to be focused on to make sure that they don't go backwards in the process as they're moving forward? How are you thinking about continuing this as opposed to moving backwards? For me, sorry, I'm just going to jump in. For me, it's like routine. It's putting the discipline there. It's checkpoints. It's given them kind of what we call at Jive is a daily workout. This is when you do your social, right? Actually try and be very prescriptive to them to make sure that they're doing it, and then do checkpoints and check on it. That's the only way. Otherwise, they will fall back, I think, or some of them may do. So your reps do this at specific times of the day, like everybody's got? We have what we call a Jive daily workout, which we recommend. This is how you should spend your time and when you should do it. Every day you should spend 30 minutes doing social. And these are the things you should do. That's the only way to kind of get some of those people. They'll follow the discipline. There are people that are passionate about it, like to the points earlier that was made on the earlier panel. If you're passionate about it, you're going to go do it. And we have some of those reps. But some of those that are in the middle, that kind of, they need a little bit more prescriptive. We need to tell them how and when to do it.
So the social amplification tools, they have leaderboards on who's sharing the most. But remember, a lot of that's automated. So you basically, you get a feed of all the posts. You can pick which ones you want. You schedule them out, and they get posted. But that's different than the in-mails, which is the gold, right? It's the actual one-to-one outreach to those key targets for specific campaigns in specific industries in specific territories, that one-to-one touch. LinkedIn doesn't have a leaderboard for that. And so that's an opportunity for someone to come up with some technology that actually can track those in-mails. How many of those are being sent every day? Because that is the goal. That is where the results will come. And unless you gamify that and incent that, you're not going to be as successful. And then I don't know if we're going to have time, but the whole thing about tracking, that was our biggest misstep. We didn't have a field in Salesforce where you can designate that this was a social lead. So how do you measure the? Yeah. I know you talked about that earlier, but that's important.
Broadening from social, but the idea of a daily workout and the analogy with working out, this is what I find with the team with the digital transformation is, I've done marketing for 30 years, but 3 years ago I didn't know anything about the tech stack that I'm currently running, and it's working so well for us. And one thing we've learned is, unlike marketing in the past, now everybody on our team it's like working out 3 or 4 days a week. You need to be very close to the technology, continue learning. It's always going to change. It's not whether it's social selling or marketing automation or the work we do with personalization, you need to keep up with it, and it needs to be just a regular part of your day, or it'd be like working out once a week. You might hurt yourself, you'll never get in shape, you'll fall by the wayside. It's now become just a regular part of being a successful marketing or sales enablement person, is staying up to
Any closing thoughts, Sarah?
So I agree with all of that. One thing that we talk about is Groundhog Day. So we go, was today a Groundhog Day? And what we mean by that is when we started something, or we kind of get lost, or suddenly we're not getting the marketing team's traction, we're not getting sales traction, we just go, oh, this is a Groundhog Day. I guess we have to do all the same meetings again. We have to do all the same training again. So I just say to stop going backwards, treat every day like a potential Groundhog Day, and don't let it depress you. Just do it all again.
I really like that analogy. That's excellent. Thank you all very much for being part of this panel. I think what I pulled out of this is that it really comes down to the process. Buy-in is obviously very important, but I think we can have an entire panel discussion about tracking and why that matters. So if as you're building out your programs within your own companies, make the data, make the tracking of this process the #1 priority, because it's going to be the easiest way for you to show the results that you have. So thank you all very much for the panel, and thank you for paying attention.